20 million Polish people scattered around the world feel this longing the most, especially during the holiday season. The lack of closeness, the lack of family, the lack of Poland. But the Polish Church helps to unite them. The tradition, beautifully celebrated and cherished by the Catholic Church, unites the Polish Church abroad. What does it look like at Christmas? Poles have an exceptionally rich Christmas tradition and are strongly attached to it. We are one of the few nations that have a Christmas Eve dinner, which is hard to find abroad. And there are millions of us abroad. The Polish diaspora scattered around the world is estimated at 20 million. The largest numbers are in the United States, Germany, Brazil, Canada, France, and the United Kingdom. That is where we recreate our tradition. The nativity scene must first and foremost depict the Holy Family, that is, the manger with Jesus, Joseph, and the Virgin Mary. As for the rest, the idea could be related to Laikonik, a symbol of Kraków referring to a costumed rider on a horse, or the Wawel dragon, as shown here. The whole world sees Kraków nativity scenes like this. Since 2018, they have been included in the UNESCO Intangible Cultural Heritage List as the first Polish Christmas custom, recognizing their uniqueness, rich tradition, and skills passed down from generation to generation, which makes them one of the most valuable cultural phenomena in Poland. All nativity scenes depict Jesus as the Holy Scriptures command, born in modest circumstances. However, the Kraków nativity scene differs from all of them in that Christ is born in a palace. But this is not a real palace. It is a palace of fantasy, created entirely in the minds of the creators of the nativity scenes. One of them was also placed in front of the presidential palace, and this is also a symbol of Christmas in public space. Wherever Polish Catholics live, there are also Polish masses, midnight masses. It can be said that the church is most visible during the Christmas season. Poles in other countries always look for a Polish church. It is a substitute for other communities, families, and homes. This is the case all over the world. The same is true in Rome. At midnight, a ceremony was held in the Polish church to celebrate midnight mass, led by Father Paweł Ptasznik, who is responsible for the pastoral care of Poles in Rome. Poles hold this tradition dear to their hearts and pass it on. That is why when they work and live far from home, they cannot return for many reasons. Once it was for political reasons, then for economic and logistical reasons. Traveling home for Christmas may prove impossible, but the sense of community remains. We spend Christmas with our whole family, our grandmothers, aunts, and grandfathers. Our whole families get together.
We think about Jesus when he was born.
Because celebrating Christmas together, as our grandmothers pass down from generation to generation, allows us to unite.
Usually it's carol singing, goes midnight mass. Yeah. What else do we do? There's actually a whole host of things. To be honest, we can't really keep it all up because it's kind of gets lost over the generations, unfortunately.
But we try our best. It's always just little details that we try to hold on to. Just like putting the bit of straw underneath the tablecloth and leaving out an extra plate in case someone poor wanders by.
And when Polish state institutions fail and everyday life forces people to live in a different culture, the Polish church helps. It is very difficult to live without knowing your roots, because without them you feel lost. I know this from my own experience. You need contact with your loved ones to feel valuable. And that is why Polish holidays, nativity scenes, but also richly decorated Christmas trees or Christmas Eve dinner with 12 dishes prepared according to grandmother's recipes are so well known and appreciated around the world because they unite. This is the fourth Christmas in Ukraine since the full-scale Russian invasion. Vladimir Putin has refused to agree to a Christmas ceasefire. Thousands of husbands, fathers, and brothers will spend these days in the trenches among their comrades. The only thing they can hope for is a brief phone call with their loved ones. Hi, have you started dinner yet? Have you gotten any presents? This Christmas is difficult not only because of the long separation. We celebrate by candlelight, like in the old days. The Russians' tactic is simple: to sow terror among Ukrainian civilians and break their fighting spirit. This is achieved by attacking apartment buildings, kindergartens, and energy infrastructure. The power has already been cut off for the second time today. There has been no power since 3 p.m. Earlier, there was no power from 5 a.m. to 12 p.m., and it's like this every day. The shadow of war falls even hundreds of kilometers from the front line. Putin's soldiers are doing everything they can to ensure that Ukrainians never forget the nightmare, even for a moment. This was the case in Kiev on Christmas Day, among other places. Friends, this is an air raid alarm. The alarm sirens wailed as a crowd of Ukrainians gathered in the center of Kiev to sing Christmas carols in traditional costumes and march through the streets of the city. Russian drones failed to scare them away. The return to Christian traditions is seen here as opposition to Soviet atheist propaganda. I think that restoring our traditions is also a form of fighting the occupier. They want to trample on our traditions. These days, every collective demonstration is also an opportunity to show gratitude to the soldiers fighting, those who spent Christmas in the trenches, and those who will never sit at the Christmas table again. I am carrying this star in memory of a fallen soldier, my friend's brother. This year, once again, Ukrainians have one wish above all others. First of all, I wish us victory as soon as possible so that we can move on with our lives, so that our Ukraine can develop, and so that all people can be happy in their country, without war, of course. Victory is still a long way off, but the chances for peace seem much greater than a year ago. An agreement between Ukraine and the U.S. is nearing completion. On Sunday, President Volodymyr Zelensky is scheduled to meet with the American leader at Donald Trump's residence in Mar-a-Lago. From what I can see, some documents are almost ready, and others are already fully prepared. Of course, we still have to work on sensitive issues, but together with the American team, we know how to implement all of this. The coming weeks may be intense. Among other things, the recent conversation between Polish President Karol Nawrocki and U.S. President Donald Trump was devoted to progress in the peace negotiations. This confirms the good cooperation between the U.S. and Poland. Donald Trump continues to completely exclude Donald Tusk from any talks with the White House, so Karol Nawrocki is to be the narrator of what is happening between Poland and the United States. This is important because the United States is the best remedy for the Kremlin's imperialist appetite. The authorities in Kiev are well aware of this and see the U.S. as the best guarantor of future peace. Perhaps there will be a breakthrough near Miami at the end of the year. What can we expect? Zelensky wants to meet with Trump to present the agreed elements of the Ukrainian, European, and American sides. But now the ball is in Putin's court. And here's the problem. For several months, Vladimir Putin has been playing for time, saying on the one hand that he is interested in peace, and on the other hand, torpedoing any constructive proposals. That is why the mood in Ukraine is still far from optimistic. Unfortunately, there is little hope for change. My husband and brother are serving in the army, and we hope that the situation will turn out in our favor. We don't want to give up any territory. And this is precisely what Russia is demanding: international recognition of the conquered Ukrainian territories. Ukrainians, especially those who have been shedding blood on the front lines for many months, do not want to hear about such a scenario. Of course I want peace, that's clear, but I want peace on Ukraine's terms. Over the past 4 years, we have proven that we deserve victory. However, we know that it will not come quickly. That is why we will continue to fight. Even if that fight means more empty seats at Christmas tables next year. Fear, Helplessness and weeks of uncertainty. This was the reality for the families of the kidnapped students from a Catholic school in northwestern Nigeria. The Christian community in the region had been the target of brutal attacks by Islamists for months. Last week, the United States struck Islamic State terrorist hideouts. American missiles fell on targets in Nigeria after a series of kidnappings and murders that shocked the public. The silence after the kidnappings was the worst thing for the families. The children disappeared into the bush, and with them, the sense of security of entire communities.
They are in the bush. We didn't know the condition they are in, what they are eating, what they are drinking, how are they sleeping, and their parents are worried, even worse. We don't know what we're going. Now the school is even closed. All of our children are sitting at home. They are just roaming about, and the government did not do anything about it.
In November, militants attacked a Catholic school, abducting more than 300 students. Some of them were held captive in the jungle for weeks. A few managed to escape.
They give us tampon that we should put it down, we should lie down and sleep, that we should not make noise for them.
Most of the children were freed thanks to negotiations with armed gangs. These gangs, working with Islamists, regularly attack Catholic churches and schools. Parents should not lose hope. We are praying for that. The children are fine. The kidnappers are taking care of them. It's only a matter of time before they return to their homes. The appeal for help was also directed outside Nigeria, to the international community and the United States. Washington had been pressuring the Nigerian government for weeks, demanding tougher action against terrorists attacking Christians. U.S. President Donald Trump warned of military intervention. Last night, the Americans followed through on their threats. Dozens of missiles fired from U.S. ships struck targets in northwestern Nigeria, bases of groups linked to the Islamic State. Tonight, at my direction as Commander-in-Chief, the United States launched a powerful and deadly strike against ISIS terrorist scum in northwest Nigeria, who have been targeting and viciously killing primarily innocent Christians at levels not seen for many years and even centuries. According to the Pentagon, the targets were not random. They were structures responsible for kidnappings and brutal executions. The media reports that the decision to strike was made after the release of the students in early December. The Nigerian government was not only aware of the operation, but also supported the Americans in providing intelligence.
This rumor and this issue of coming of Americans has been lingering for a while now. So coming to Nigeria to do that is just to set a pace for Nigeria also that puts your leg in. We don't need to be fighting to go to Burkina Faso, go to other places and be fighting while our own house is on fire. It doesn't make any sense.
However, Nigeria is not the only country where Christians were attacked. There are dozens of places on the world map where people suffer solely because of their faith. There was a Christmas where churches were blown up during midnight mass. Why? Because that was when most Christians gathered and were an easier target. To put it bluntly, it was more effective to kill them. We also have interviews with our priests who were kidnapped. This whole atmosphere of intimidation, fear, and kidnappings was meant to force Christians to accept Sharia law. That is why Christian minorities need support from the church and foundations, as well as initiatives such as this Christmas concert, which is a message of peace performed by Lebanese children. The proceeds from the concert were donated to the people of war-torn Lebanon. During his Christmas Urbi et Orbi blessing, Pope Leo XIV called for prayers for peace in the often forgotten and overlooked conflicts in Africa. From the child of Bethlehem, we implore peace and consolation for the victims of all the wars raging in the world today, especially those forgotten, and for those who suffer from injustice, political instability, religious persecution, and terrorism. Let us remember in a special way our brothers and sisters in Sudan, South Sudan, Mali, Burkina Faso, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. According to data from Open Doors, an organization that monitors religious persecution, more than 380 million Christians worldwide experience high levels of persecution and discrimination because of their faith. In Poland on Christmas Eve, we wait for the first star to appear in the sky. We break the wafer, prepare 12 dishes, and leave an extra place setting on the table for a surprise guest. Then we celebrate Christmas for 2 days. These are our Polish traditions. How is Christmas celebrated in other parts of the world? Mexico, a country of music, dance, colors, flavors, and diversity. The majority of the population here is Catholic, and Christmas is of course a wonderful reason to celebrate. One of the most famous traditions of this Central American country is Las Posadas, or processions, symbolizing Mary and Joseph's journey in search of shelter before the birth of Jesus Christ. The processions are organized between December 16th and 24th. They last for 9 days, symbolizing the 9 months that Mary was with child. Participants are divided into 2 groups, those who are looking for accommodation and those who are inside the place, symbolizing the inn. At first, the latter do not want to let the pilgrims in, but in the end, they give in to their requests and everyone celebrates together. Once we enter, dinner awaits us, including the famous tamales. There is also fruit and sweets, and then we break the piñata. Piñata, a paper star. Its 7 arms symbolize the 7 deadly sins. When the piñata is broken, sweet rewards spill out from inside. It is a blessing we receive when we are done with sin. And this is the Philippines, one of the few and largest Catholic countries in Asia. Here, Christmas celebrations begin in September and last until January.
Central religious practice during this period is Simbang Gabi, a series of 9 early morning masses held in the days leading up to Christmas. The tradition dates back to the Spanish colonial period and remains widely observed today. For Filipino families, attendance is considered an expression of faith, discipline, and preparation for Christmas Day.
Traditional seasonal delicacies are sold outside churches.
Bibingka and puto bongbong, rice-based delicacies cooked over charcoal, as well as salabat, hot ginger tea, and chocolate, a thick hot chocolate drink. So these foods are closely associated with Christmas season and are typically consumed only during this time of year.
In the Philippines, Christmas is a time for family meals and games. It is also a time for spiritual reflection.
Filipino culture, there is a common expression, hindi nawawala ang diwa ng Pasko, which means the spirit of Christmas and June.
Greeks prepare Christmas treats several weeks before the holidays.
Melomacarona are made of honey and kurabyetes are made of sugar. They taste really good. The second thing we do is...
In this island country, in addition to Christmas trees, residents also decorate boats.
This is what the people who live in the islands do. So they decorate a ship or a boat, as well as a Christmas tree.
However, all inhabitants of Hellas give each other Christmas presents, not on Christmas Day, but on New Year's Day.
Sing the Christmas carols, so the Greek kids go from door to door on Christmas Eve and on New Year's Eve, and they sing the Christmas carols, the traditional Greek Christmas and New Year's carols.
And on January 6th, the so-called blessing of the waters is celebrated. Greeks jump into the water to retrieve a cross floating in the depths.
Merry Christmas, everyone, or Kala Christougena, as we say in Greece.
As the old Polish proverb says, different countries have different customs, but everywhere the point is the same, to celebrate the birth of Jesus Christ together.